You know, making this list was actually pretty hard. Like, almost every single level in Crash 4 is fantastic, so narrowing it all down to pick 10 favourites felt impossible. In all honesty, I'm still not satisfied with the list I have, and it would probably be totally different if I sat down to write it again. And if Crash 4 ends up getting DLC, well, I'm almost certain that it would completely invalidate this list. Either way, I've written this list, so that's what we're going with for now. Just a bit of explanation before we dive in though. First thing, this is opinion based, so don't come for my head if you don't like what you hear. You're allowed to disagree, so chill. If you want, you can even put your top 10 best levels or favourite levels in the comments. Second thing is how I've put this list together. I've based it on a few things. Firstly is the gameplay and level design, so things like platforming challenges, box placement and mask usage. Then there's the visual aspect, so how the environment looks, the theme or location, that kind of stuff. Music also plays a part in it, but the whole game's soundtrack is brilliant, so that won't have too much of an impact. Last thing I have to mention is what I'm counting as a level. This list excludes boss fights, since they're boss fights, and I also haven't counted the flashback tapes as levels either. For the case of timeline levels, I'm basically bundling them with the main level. So, for example, if Dino Dash appears in this list, and I'm not saying it will, but I'm not saying it won't either, it will share a spot with the fantastically named Rock Blocked. The reason for this is simply because both Dino Dash and Rock Blocked are different versions of the same level, and it wouldn't really make sense to give them separate spots since the visuals and soundtrack are mostly the same between them, and the level design in Crash's portion of those levels doesn't change much at all. To be honest, most of what I have to say about the normal levels also applies to the timeline levels anyway. Anyway, now that we've got that out of the way, let's start talking about these levels. Here are my top 10 best levels in Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. Kicking off our list in the number 10 spot we have Nitro Processing. This is a pretty weird choice for me because usually I'm not a huge fan of sewer levels or industrial waste type levels, but in this case I'm actually on board with it. The problem I normally have with these types of levels is that the environment is usually very dull and lacking in colour, as well as every area of the level looking the same. It results in a very boring and forgettable experience. But in the case of Nitro Processing, this isn't a problem. Nitro Processing isn't just a long, dark tunnel, instead it features a lot of variation in the environment. In particular, there's a section of the level where you traverse around a giant nitro pumping machine, which sticks out to me. There's also the gears and cogs in the machine-based areas, which helps the level to feel more dynamic than your standard industrial waste level. As for the actual level design, the platforming here is simple yet effective. It's a very fair level, but still manages to be difficult. I wouldn't count it among the hardest levels of the game, but it definitely isn't easy. The level uses both Ika Ika and Kupunoa in pretty basic ways, but that doesn't take away from the level design. They're implemented well and don't take up too much of the level, which is good. Then there's the music, which surprised me in this level. I expected the music for Nitro Processing to follow suit with other levels of this type. Ominous and dull sounding music is typical for this sort of environment. The music for Nitro Processing somehow manages to pull off being ominous industrial sewer music and funky at the same time. Like, how does that combination even work? It's like sweet potato fries. It's a combination that shouldn't exist, but it does, and it's fantastic. Overall, Nitro Processing is a very solid level, and a great way to kick off this list. Next up on our list is Hook, Line and Sinker. This is the first level we get to play as Torna, and if you've seen my unpopular Crash Opinions video, then you know how much I love Torna in this game. The level design is perfectly moulded around Torna's moveset, which allows for a fast-paced sprint through the level. You're always moving and always on your toes in this level, which I absolutely love. Since it's a tutorial level for playing as Torna, in addition to the fact that it's rather early on in the game, Hook, Line and Sinker isn't a very hard level. Even so, I think the lack of challenge is more than made up for with how fun it is to blast through it. And the music matches the feel of the level perfectly. It's just as intense and upbeat as the level itself, which is just brilliant. I do have one problem with the level though, and that's the whole environment of the level is the same. I mean, I know there's only so much you can do when you have a level made up exclusively from pirate ships, but still, the whole thing is just brown. Lots and lots of brown. And the crates are mostly brown too, which doesn't really help the situation. They could have made the ships different colours, I think, but that said, I think the lighting and the sky look fantastic in the level, so that sort of makes up for the unbelievable amount of brown. Overall though, a very fun level to fly through. Moving on to number 8, Food Run. This is a similar sort of situation to Nitro Processing in that I'm not much of a fan of futuristic city environments in games. Usually they're filled with grey skyscrapers with mirrors on the walls that all look the same, and usually some flying cars in the background, which I generally find to be uninspired. Food Run and the whole snacks dimension are guilty of the flying cars thing, but I actually like that the futuristic city environment here doesn't go for the generic and boring grey skyscraper motif. This level is incredibly bright and colourful, and the environment looks like something out of a Pixar movie. It's also pretty dynamic, ranging from the city and roads, if you can call them that, to a whole construction site. Definitely a lot better than copying and pasting the same grey building over and over, if you ask me. The platforming involved in this level is nothing short of spectacular. Food Run is one of the few levels in the game to make use of all 4 quantum masks, and they're each implemented quite well. I'm particularly a fan of using Lani Loli and Ika Ika while wall running on the sides of food trucks. It's such a creative use of the masks in combination with Crash's other abilities. Not only is it creative, it's also pretty tough, which I can appreciate. Too many games these days are designed with toddlers in mind, so I'm glad that this game didn't fall into that trap. The music is also very fitting in this level. It's quite a happy and upbeat tune which fits the overall vibrant and positive vibe the level gives off. As someone who usually isn't a fan of future levels, even I have to admit that Food Run is an amazing level and deserving of the number 8 spot. Talk about a whopper opening level. Rude Awakening? Nah mate, this awakening is more than welcome. Before Crash 4, I always gave the title of best opening level in a Crash game to Arctic Antics in Wrath of Cortex, but that's all changed now. Rude Awakening is easily the best opening level in Crash in my opinion. Both the level and the music are the perfect mix of familiarity and originality, which is a difficult balance to get right. It's a very dynamic level in that sense as well. It moves from the familiar Insanity Beach to a jungle village to climbing up a cliff to reach Insanity Peak, and it all looks stunning. It also does a great job of introducing the new rail grind mechanic. It's the first level of the game, so it's not a difficult level at all, but it doesn't fall into the trap of being too easy. A trap I feel like Insanity Beach, Turtle Woods, Toad Village and Arctic Antics all fall into. I get that a first level is supposed to introduce you to the game and ease you into it, but even still, those levels are way too easy. Rude Awakening gets it right. Of course, being the first level in the game, it is restricted in how original, creative and challenging it can be with the platforming. No quantum masks have been seen at this point, so they aren't in the level, and nitro crates haven't been introduced yet either. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's the purest you can get with core Crash gameplay I think, but it does leave me thinking that this level is missing something. Even so, it is an absolutely fantastic opener. This level is an absolute bastard, so naturally I've put it as number 6 on this list. Run It By You and its timeline level No Dillo Dally are in my opinion the cheekiest levels in the whole of Crash 4, Run It By You especially. Why is Run It By You cheeky, you ask? Well, right at the beginning there are 6 crates hidden behind the stairs that you would never know were there unless you broke them accidentally. Then there's the yellow gem. You can see the yellow gem in the level's opening cutscene, but most people wouldn't notice it. You'd probably only know if it was there if you had collected it accidentally. And then we have the hidden gem, which is hidden off camera and out of view over a row of outline crates, whose switch crate is also tucked away and very well hidden. You can't even find this one accidentally. Run It By You is bursting at the seams with that classic, unfair 90s video game bullshit. and I absolutely love it. I had to look up where the missing crates and the hidden gem were when going for the perfect relic, and when I found out where they were, I was pissed off. And I have never been happier to be pissed off in my life. I also love no dilly-dallying for very similar reasons, but also because it has 502 fucking crates. Given most of them are Nitro crates, but like, still, I can't even count that high. Bullshit aside, I do think the level design of Run It By You and No Dilly-Dallying are solid. The gameplay is pretty diverse as it periodically switches between Jetboil segments and standard platforming. It also introduces some new elements to the platforming, one of which is the countdown crates, which are an addition I'm surprised hasn't been made to the Crash series sooner. There's another segment of the level in which you're almost escorted over a river by an armadillo. Such a thing is also new to Crash. Having to rely on an NPC moving a platform isn't really something we've seen before, so it's definitely a breath of fresh air. If memory serves, you don't use any of the quantum masks here, but that's fine. Run It By You and No Dilly-Dallying still manage to keep things fresh without the masks. In terms of visuals, these levels are surprisingly bright and colourful considering that they're swamp levels, so I'm a fan of that. The music is also pretty great. The normal theme fits the vibe of the environment, and the Jetboil theme is reminiscent of Ripperoo's themes from the original games, which I adore. So overall, Run It By You and No Dilly-Dallying are a really strong combination of familiarity, new ideas, and classic bullshit. This is how you do an ice level, people. Our number 5 spot goes to Snow Way Out and its timeline level, Ship Happens, which is a brilliant name for a level. Snow Way Out does so many things well. Being the tutorial level for Kapunua, Snow Way Out does a great job of showing how the time slow ability can be used. Not just for slowing down platforms to cross a large gap, but also how it can be used to deal with nitro crates, which is so much better than the fucking tiptoe from Wrath of Cortex. The platforming challenges are designed around Kapunua really well. The ice physics are present, which is kinda but they aren't there for too long, so I'm fine with it. Also, waterfall secrets. Gotta love waterfall secrets. What I especially love is how open the level is, specifically the river sections with the floating ice platforms. Classic Crash levels are usually very dense and corridor-like, but in Snow Way Out it's still a linear level, but the area is so much more expansive, which I love. Ship Happens is pretty much in the same boat. What I love about Crash's portion of Ship Happens is that it shows how much crate placement can influence how you approach a level. Even though the geometry of the level is the same between Snow Way Out and Ship Happens, the changes in crate placement completely alter how you use that geometry to break them all. You move around to different locations in the level in a different order, and it shakes up the platforming too. Also, I love Cortex's gameplay. I was surprised at how well Cortex's puzzle platforming fits into the classic Crash style, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. I just wish that Ship Happens had a bit more Cortex gameplay in it. Unfortunately, I do think Snow Way Out and Ship Happens are a bit too easy for where they are in the game. They're at the beginning of the 6th world, but are easier than the levels in the whole of the 4th world, which is a shame. Thematically though, Snow Way Out and Ship Happens are stunning. The levels look amazing and the music is spectacular. As much as I love Crash 2, I definitely think levels like Snow Go, where the level is almost entirely snow, aren't very aesthetically pleasing, so I'm glad that Snow Way Out and Ship Happens turned out to be masterpieces in that regard. I mean, a zombie fisherman waterfall village that's been frozen over? I guess you could say that's pretty cool. Sorry, moving on. Out of all the pirate levels in Crash 4, Jetboil Jetty sticks out in my mind the most. I think that's mostly because it's thematically quite different from the other pirate levels in the game. Booty Calls and Dahi Blows take place in a pirate village, and Hook, Line and Sinker takes place on a fleet of ships out at sea. Jetboil Jetty goes for a very different approach. Instead of a lively, colourful environment, Jetboil Jetty presents a gloomier, spookier environment with a shipwreck or ship graveyard sort of theme, which I think is pretty damn cool. The music also slaps in this level, one of my favourite songs in the game. As for the level design, two particular elements stand out. The first is the 2 sections where you're restricted to a moving raft. They take place after the first jetboard section and on the green gem path, and they're actually pretty intense. If those rafts were replaced with solid ground, I would say that those sections of the levels aren't very challenging since you can go as slow as you want and take it one hazard at a time. But, since you're restricted to a moving platform, it really keeps you on your toes, and you have no choice but to keep up while avoiding all the hazards. I love gameplay that keeps you on the edge of your seat, and for as early on in the game as Jetboil Jetty is, it does that really well. The second element that stands out is the mini-boss, Louise. It's the only mini-boss in the game, and that alone makes it unique, but the fact that it's a boss fight on a jetboard is just so cool. And I love the way it works with luring the other enemies into Louise's tentacles. Other than those 2 elements though, the rest of the level is fairly basic and standard, at least within the realm of Crash 4, which is unfortunate. I have to say though, Jetboil Jetty nails everything else. I said earlier that Rude Awakening takes the cake for the best opening level in Crash Bandicoot history, and I fully stand by that. In the same way, I fully stand by Cortex Castle being the best final level in the whole Crash Bandicoot series. I mean, it's extremely difficult to fault it in any respect. The visuals are spectacular and reminiscent of various parts of Cortex Castle we saw in Crash 1. It takes elements of the lab, lights out and fumbling in the dark and combines them into a nostalgic and stunning environment. The music is also fantastic and very fitting for its setting. But by far the best thing about Cortex Castle and its timeline level Seeing Double is the level design. Oh my fucking god, the level design here is orgasmic. This level focuses on using all 4 quantum masks. The first half of the level sees each mask used in its own segment. These segments are quite challenging and do an excellent job of showing off the creative ways in which the masks can be used. But those segments are nothing compared to the final stretch of the level. The very last segment makes you combine the powers of all 4 quantum masks to get through some extremely tricky platforming challenges. You are constantly changing masks and constantly maneuvering through hazards and traps with rapidly changing circumstances. It's tough, it's tricky, but fuck me, it's awesome. Cortex's portion of Seeing Double can also be pretty tricky, and it's very well designed, but it can't hold a candle to Crash's portion. Cortex Castle and Seeing Double are easily worthy of being the final levels of Crash 4, no question. This might come as a bit of a surprise, but I'm giving the number 2 spot to Hit the Road and its timeline level, Truck Stopped. If this list was based purely on gameplay and level design, no doubt I would have given the top 2 spots to Toxic Tunnels and Cortex Castle. But this list also factors in the environment and visuals, as well as the music of the level, which is why I haven't placed Toxic Tunnels on the list, and why Cortex Castle isn't at the top of it. In terms of level design, Hit the Road and Truck Stopped aren't exactly groundbreaking, but they're still well designed levels that are fun to barrel through, both from Crash's perspective and Torna's perspective. But while I enjoy the design of these levels, it's not why I've placed them so high on the list. The reason it's so high is because I absolutely adore the environment. Usually when you have desert themes or junkyard themes, the environments tend to be quite monochrome. Lots of rusty colours, browns, dark greys, those sorts of colours. But here in Hit the Road, that's not an issue at all. The environment is bright and colourful with light browns and greys mixed with neon lights, and rather than going for the uninspired idea of simply having piles and piles of scrap make up the environment, Hit the Road and Truck Stopped almost feel like it's a city that's been built into a junkyard, which I find thematically to be pretty wicked, and the music vibes with it perfectly. In fact, this city is also present in the preceding level Crash Compactor. I believe it even has a name, Clang City. It's such a cool approach to a scrapyard theme in a game like this. But by far my favourite thing about this level is the chase sequence. It's so damn cool. It combines the chase levels that Crash is known for with the Atmosphere, and if you've seen my unpopular Crash Opinions video, you know how much I love the Atmosphere. On top of that, and I feel like a 10-year-old for saying this, but the scene is just so awesome. Running away from Engine's truck in the Atmosphere? Mate, count me in. I do wish this level was a bit later in the game so it could have been a bit more challenging, but that aside, Hit the Road and Truck Stop are phenomenal levels. Offbeat. Holy shit. Before I start foaming at the mouth talking about how good this level is, I want to get my one complaint out of the way. Offbeat is not a very hard level and it could do with a bit more challenge. That's it. That's my only complaint. Beyond that, Offbeat is a fucking masterpiece. I don't even know where to begin. In terms of level design and platforming challenges, mask usage and box placement, Offbeat is pretty standard, but the level is unique in that a lot of the hazards are rhythm based. Obstacles, enemies and hazards activate in time with the music, which is so cool. Granted, this makes timing your jumps and movements pretty easy, but the whole concept is incredible. And speaking of music, the music for Offbeat is nothing short of fantastic. I don't even know how to describe it. It's upbeat, groovy and it gets stuck in your head. Especially the rail grinding variant of the song, which I've been using in my end cards recently. And then we get to the visuals, which are absolutely breathtaking. With how much detail is in the environment and the enemies, the fireworks and all the other effects, I'm surprised the frame rate didn't tank in this level. There's so much going on and so much to take in. It's extremely vibrant and colourful, and even just the lights in the windows turning on and off in time with the music just gives so much life to the environment. And I haven't even touched upon the Easter eggs yet. Offbeat is filled with Easter eggs and references to different characters and games. Pinstripe, Pura, Fate Crash, even Spyro and Skylanders. Offbeat is just overflowing with personality. It's an absolutely fantastic level and is more than deserving of the #1 spot. And there we have it. The 10 best levels in Crash 4 according to me. I can say with certainty that in about a week, I'll probably have a completely different list of what I think the best levels are since I can never make up my mind with these things. But I'm happy that Crash 4 managed to deliver an excellent range of fantastic levels. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, I encourage you to like and subscribe, and I'd also like to hear what your favourite levels from Crash 4 are in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.